You know, this is April Fool's Day, Grandma.
Yeah, it's pretty near.
The wall at the hotel. I think it was to add just an extra place to hang things.
And she told me about Ruth Speaks, and I said, Mary Lou, and she said, yes. But then she thought of it being Laura. She remembered Laura.
Huh. Wow.
Her name is Ritzer now. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I heard your mother talk about it.
Just ignore this camera, Grandma.
You get used to it in
Just
our
ignore
house.
All right.
Anything real? Words of wisdom?
Oh, yes. Words of wisdom. Gee whiz. Oh, dear.
You know, what was it like 89 years ago? Do you remember?
We don't remember 89 years ago, but I remember things pretty early.
What's the earliest you remember?
I think I remember being on my dad's lap sitting in a boat in Lake Erie. I've heard them tell that we went on a trip on the lakes on a boat, but I can just see the lake, and
Oh,
and I
wow.
remember that. And I was probably 3 or 4 years old.
Wow, so that would have been in 19...
14.
Wow. That was before World War I.
Yes. And then we went back, we were in Ohio, and my folks decided to go back to West Virginia. They was, both of them from West Virginia. And I was born here in Ohio, though. They came here. And when I was between 6 and 7 years old, my folks had decided to go back to West Virginia. And it was just Grace and I and Mother and Dad. And we got a telegram. They were all packed up and sold our furniture, and we were at an aunt and uncle's for a few days before we left. And got a telegram from my mother, and it said, "Come at once, your son is dead." And it was signed. It was signed by Steve. That was her oldest boy. They're my half brothers.
Okay.
And so she knew it wasn't him, but then she had 3 other boys.
So she didn't know what boy it was. Ooh.
And we came in, and it was, roads were just a glare of ice. And there wasn't any cars that I remember of around. But this uncle had a team of horses and a bobsled. And we had suitcases and 4 of us. And I can remember that trip. And I can remember sparks flying from the horse hoofs. And I don't know what caused them, but all the way into Connie, it was about 15 miles out there. I can remember those sparks. And we got to the railroad station, same one that's up here. It has a railroad museum.
Mm-hmm.
And there was lots of young fellows, I can see them, are all over the place in khaki uniforms. I didn't know anything about war.
Right.
But found out that they were waiting for an eastbound train. We were waiting for westbound. And it was just a group of soldiers from camp, and I don't know where from.
Wow.
And my mother explained what it was like. And we got on the train, and it was a long trip even by train those days. We had to change all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere along the line, the conductor came through and called my mother's name. And Steve had remembered that he had signed it and had said that those days when you sent telegrams, you made them just as short as
Right.
you could. And he said, your son Mike has been killed. And I remember going to the funeral home, and right when we got there. And mother carrying on, emotionally. And a woman said, "But Martha, at least you can see your son."
Yeah. Yeah.
And his brother-in-law had went in the coal mine, after him when he didn't come out when he should have. And they were both killed falling room. But my brother, evidently with his body, and we saw his face already. He married and had a little boy about a year old.
Aww.
And
He was in the coal mine then?
no, none of them were in the coal mine.
Oh, okay. No, where did he die at?
Oh, he died yes, he was killed in the coal mine, yeah.
Huh.
And his own father, they were my half-brothers. His own father was the foreman, and they had was just really saving money for the company, I guess. That they didn't have more new props. It's pulling new props as they left this vein, and they pulled him too soon. So his own son killed him.
Wow. Wow.
And I remember little things like that. But
So what year did you get married?
got married in 1926.
So you were 16?
I was 16, born 1910.
And how old was Grandpa?
Grandpa, like 2 weeks from being 21.
Oh,
We had to go to Jefferson for a license, and we didn't go until that day. I had a home wedding up to Amboy, where my folks lived. Henry had made an archway and had grown sweet peas all summer for our wedding, pink sweet peas. And it was all lined with sweet peas, this archway.
Wow.
And he almost didn't have time to, we had to go to Jefferson yet to get our license. And so he left it up to my sister to put the bows on it, and she didn't get them on nice at all. And he always just liked the picture because she hadn't done it like he would have done it. But that was another story. Well, we found out just before we left that he lacked 2 weeks of being 21, and he had to have his parents' consent. So they lived in this house, and they went with my mother and dad and Henry and I, the 6 of us, to Jefferson with our license. And just immediate family was the wedding. And then my mother had planned a big dinner for grandparents and some aunts and uncles.
did you go on a honeymoon?
Yeah, about 5 miles down to where we were going to live with his grandfather, Leslie Benson, an old Civil War vet, and sat in the porch there, and Henry's Uncle Archie lived close by, and he came and sat and talked to Grandpa, and we wasn't going to bed first, and I think they just kept staying there talking, and so it got kind of late. We didn't go anywhere. We went to church the next day.
This is during Prohibition, right? So there was no champagne. Or was there some?
No, there wasn't. No, there wasn't.
You had to think though.
Yes, I did, because at our 50th wedding anniversary, we had champagne. Bob is building a ramp for a neighbor fella. He's at the nursing home, and he can't get home. He's got a board here in his hand.
Oh yeah. That's,
So how long have you lived in this house?
And we moved back here in 1940, 41, just Pearl Harbor, just before or just after. His folks had lived here up until then. They moved here in 1906. Henry was born 1905, and the house was fairly new, but it was an 18th something. It was before 1900 it was built, and so they moved uptown because they were older and Pa wasn't too well, and we bought it and moved here. We didn't live with Grandpa Benson only a couple of months until we bought the place right back of us here and lived in that house when Mary and Laura were both born here.
wow.
And with Whitney Road, was it always red bricks or?
No, 1923. And Dad they lived here, of course, when it was put in, but when they was making the curb out here, he wrote his initials in the cement curb, and I don't think they even show up, but I know where they were.
Really?
It was 1923.
Huh.
And it was Lakeville on the other side and Conneaut on this side of the road, and Lakeville wouldn't go in for paving it. It couldn't afford it or something or other, and so the brick pavement was 2/3 in Conneaut and 1/3 in Lakeville. And so it used to be a lot of fun for us. Mary and Laura used to, in high school days, go down to the corner. It was it sold a few groceries, and they had a jukebox, and they danced in part of the place. and we always said they had to be home a certain time. But there was a curfew in Conneaut, but if they walked on the other side of the road, they were at Lakeville, so they could stretch a little bit.
That's cute.
And both of them had boyfriends. Your mother, while we lived here, let's see, it was Valentine's Day, that she got 6 boxes of candy, 6 different fellas. One of them come to the back door and one was just leaving out the front door. It was real embarrassing for me to have them meet.
So did she have one that she really liked, or she just liked all 6?
Well, at that time she liked all 6, but then she did get to liking a fellow by the name of Dick Taggart, and he liked her pretty well. Then another study book, she got to go and study with Dave Christian. And by the way, he was down to see me just a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
He lives in
Chardon.
and he came to see your mother. And at your mother's funeral, this was really funny. His wife came. She's very nice, and Laura would always say, "Bring Marie," and of course he never did. Evidently, Marie worked quite a bit of time. He didn't. He was retired, and but she came to the calling hours for Laura, and someone pointed. I don't remember who in the family pointed to. She and Dave stood there, and he said, "This is the basket you sent, a floral piece," and I happened to be looking at them, and it was really kind of funny because she looked kind of surprised. And we knew she didn't know anything about it.
Oh, God.
But he came to Henry's funeral, and he'd come down, and he stays so long when he comes down. She'd have to tell him up there this, in the last few years, she said, "No, Dave, I don't feel like coming down." He'd always call when he went into Madison before he came down. She's probably told you about him. He was a nice fellow. Nothing against him. But
This was after Dick?
that was after Dick. And then when she started cosmetology school was when she met your dad. And then there wasn't any more boyfriends. Your dad,
Stole her heart.
yeah. And she brought him down. She hadn't known him very long until he came down with her one Saturday. I think she came home. She rode the train back and forth because she finally roomed up there with a girl that she went to cosmetology school with. And how about some more pie?
No, actually, I'm full. I'm thinking about just picking at one of these pieces of ham, but
Oh,
I think,
that's what. Well,
I think
bread.
I'll just. Well, no, I don't want any bread. I just kind of want to
Well,
pick at a
then,
piece.
Yes. It's all right.
She used to take the train back here?
Yes, it left, number 7 nickel plate train left Conneaut about 7 o'clock in the morning. It was just real nice to ride up to Cleveland because the cosmetology school was on Euclid Avenue, not far from the terminal building. And then at night it got into Conneaut about 8 in the evening. And so it was handy. She went back and forth a lot. But this Beverly Demko,
Demko, right.
his grandmother lived, I think it was in East Cleveland, but Beverly stayed with her grandmother, and finally Laura stayed with her too.